Hello and welcome to my first ever bullet journal video on YouTube. I've been sharing some of my bullet journaling on Instagram, but I wanted to just create some more stuff for YouTube, I suppose, and this is one area that I find really fun to create content around. So I'm just going to start off with a flip through really of my 2021 bullet journal. I've just started off with a little introduction page, just says 2021 book Bujo. And then my first page is my book tracker. So I colour in corresponding to the colours of the months. I colour in here a box for each book that I read. And then I log statistics about where I get my books from, what format I read them in, and the profile of the author, the country of birth of the author, representation in books, whether it's translated, and what genres and things I'm reading. Mostly I just track fiction, non-fiction, graphic novels, poetry, etc. And then I let Storygraph do the rest of the work on that. But that's basically my reading stats that I track. So my next spread is a bookshelf that I fill with my 2021 reads. I had this on a previous journal, on last year's journal, and I loved it. Like, I love the way it finishes off. I colour in the book every time I read it. Some people write out and draw out their books before they read, but I don't really like to do that because sometimes you get a really long title, sometimes a really short title, and it's good just to kind of see the variety in that as the spread grows. So that will soon be filled with lots of colour and lots of books, and yeah. I had only one spread like this last year and it wasn't enough, so I've left space that if I need it I can create another one. Let's just see how the year goes. And this here is a spread where I just list the number of the book that I've read, the title, the author, what rating I gave out of 5, the format I read it in, so physical, ebook, audiobook, where I read it from, the library, if it's my owned TBR, and then when I read it. I thought about playing around with this format a little bit this year, but I decided just to stick with what I had last year because it worked for me, and sometimes in bullet journaling things don't end up working out, and you just have to play around with it and see what does work for you. But these are the things that I like to track. I'm less interested in the dates read, but it just keeps me kind of on track. If, say, like Goodreads goes down or Storygraph goes down, I can still find out information. And I've left several pages for this because I read a lot last year and I just wanted to give myself space that if I needed it, it was there. My next actual spread is for 2021 favourites. I fill this out throughout the year because in 2019 I had some real issues picking my favourites of the year, and I found that it was kind of disproportionately balanced to books that I'd read in the latter half of the year, and I just felt that I was doing the books I had read at the first part of the year a disservice. So I basically, if I finish a book and I think it's been brilliant and I won't forget about it and I'll really be thinking about that a lot throughout the year, I just note it here, and then at the end of the year I review and I say, well, do you know what, that actually wasn't such a favourite, or, you know. Last year it started as a 5-star books spread, and I just found that that was a bit restrictive because sometimes you rate a book 4 stars but it stays with you and you think it's brilliant and you think other people should read it and it becomes a favourite. So I just relabeled this one 2021 favourites this year. The next spread is books I DNF. I DNF'd about maybe 80 books last year. I DNF'd a lot of books. I think I was still figuring out what exactly I was interested in reading about, what exactly I wanted to read about, and that was just the way it kind of manifested in a lot of books picked up that I didn't end up finishing. They just weren't what I expected them to be, but it was great, and I managed to hone my own reading taste a lot more. And I think I'm hoping for less DNFs, but DNFs are healthy. Do you know that? If you're not enjoying a book, don't continue it. Just carry on with your life. Life's too short to read books you're not interested in. And last year I filled both sides of this, and I was getting to the bottom and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to finish every book now because I've run out of space. So this year I've just given myself more space just in case, because you just never know what the year is going to bring. And this next spread I'm really proud of. I think it's lovely. I might add some colour at some point, but I really like it just as it is for just now. It's basically just an overview spread of reading trackers that will be what will be coming next in the journal. And here I'm hoping to list where I can find the spreads if I need to, but I'm not sure if I'll need to, but I just thought I would give myself that space. The first spread of my reading spread is for my 2021 own TBR, and here I had a similar spread last year, but it was smaller. It fits just on one page, and I found that really restrictive. So this year I spread out over 2 pages, and I gave the boxes bigger, like more room. Or I usually use it just to track like what books I, like numerical wise, what books I read from my own TBR, what books I unshelved. But I might use it to track like favourites as well, or I'm not sure. But I just like the look of it. I think it's very pretty and look forward to filling it in throughout the year. This is my own TBR in physical books. I have a lot of ebooks and audiobooks, but because I live abroad, I'm most interested in getting my physical books, kind of managing them, because they're something that you'd have to travel with, or if you move, you know, you'd have to move with them. And so this is just a little tracker for those. Also, if I was to track my ebooks, it just gets a bit out of hand, because I do, I'm partial to a 99p ebook deal, shall we say. So yeah, I like the way this turned out though, and look forward to filling it in if I buy any more books and things like that. I left some more space just in case, because this is just the books, sorry, I should have said this is just the books I have access to in Iceland. And if I was to move back to Scotland, my TBR would grow quite a lot, because there's quite a lot of books back in Scotland. So I left some room for that to grow if it needs to, and in case there's any other spreads that are kind of related to that, I've left room for that. And the next one is a tracker for book series. I don't really read a lot of book series, but this year I wanted to track them. One thing I noticed about my reading last year is I would return to authors of YA literature, and I would return to authors of romance literature again and again, and I think that's because I'm quite a fussy reader in those genres. Well, young adult's not a genre, but you know what I mean. I've left space at the side just because you just never know if there's going to be more coming out in each series. I know for sure that Heartstopper has a 4th volume coming out next year, but I haven't checked if the other ones are completed series. Now the next one is probably the one I'll be focusing most on this year, and it's basically 2 lists. On the left hand side we have 21 books to read in 2021, and I've completed 10 in January. Like, I've started off with a list of 10, and I am going to set another 11 in June. I didn't want to set out a big list at the start of the year because, as I said, my reading taste is just changing quite dramatically, and I don't want to be restricted and feel like, oh, I have to read X title because I've written in my bullet journal, etc, etc. So that's my plan with that. I've so far started, in fact I've just finished reading The Housekeeper and the Professor, but I wanted to film this video before I started colouring things in. And that takes me on to the right side. So the right side is authors I'd like to read in 2021. Now this is just compiled of authors who I've read something from before, or I haven't, but I keep thinking I really want to read some of that author's work. The first 2 columns are authors whose work I have read before but I would like to read more from, and the third is authors I have never read before but would like to. And basically the idea, the inspiration behind this spread is that I keep finding that I'll read an author's work and then never return to them. And I was getting quite frustrated with myself because there were so many authors whose work I had read and loved, and I just felt like I was missing out on something by not continuing with more of their titles. So I'm hoping that this spread will prompt me to do that, and I'll just enjoy that little journey. This spread is kind of a carry-on, so when I was writing out this authors I'd like to read in 2021 page, I asked my friends on Bookstagram, are there any authors who you'd recommend to me? And these were the authors that they came up with, so I decided to make a little space for them in my bullet journal, and whenever I'm looking for inspiration or recommendations, I'm just planning to return to this little spread and see what names are on it, really. This next spread is for Netgalley reads, so I read quite a lot via Netgalley, and I just wanted to track them. This is a spread I used last year and it worked for me. The beady-eyed among you may notice that I do have some 2019 releases on there. 2 of those were ones I was approved for in 2020, so I'm letting myself off the hook a little bit on that one. But the Confessions by Jessie Burton, I'm afraid to say, has been sat there since August 2019, so I won't make excuses, it just is what it is, and I have quite a lot to catch up on my backlist of Netgalley, but I've also got quite a lot to look forward to. I tend to write them out month by month, what my releases are that are still to be read, and then I just colour them in at the side once I've read them and reviewed them on the site. And I've left some, quite a lot of room for that really, so I've got all this space here and I'm going to leave this blank just in case I run over, because as I said, I do use it quite a lot and I like it, so yeah. I've also left more space after the fact, just because I might think of other spreads I want to do. I sometimes get very excited about a reading project, and just giving myself a bit of room for those could be really good for me, I think. And then I get into my monthly spreads. So this is a overview that I created. I really like how it turned out. I think it's really pretty. I especially like all the floral work, and I'm just really happy with it. I'm basically going to just write down the month that I have, and if I write page numbers, that would be probably quite helpful. The month, and if there's any readathons I take part in, I create a spread for, I will just track them all here. And I think it will be just a helpful guide and a nice thing to look at every now and then. And then finally I have my January spread. So I played around with this last month to see how I might use that spread. I've had a spread every month of 2020 in my last year's bullet journal, and I wanted something similar, but I knew I needed it to be a bit more helpful, more useful than it was being. I sometimes had TBRs or dates of publications, and then I had books I'd read, and I just needed to kind of hone in on what exactly I wanted from it. So this is what I've come up with, and I'll just play around with it as the year goes on and see what works for me. And then I've left this space blank, maybe for readathons. I know January in Japan is happening, I'm taking part in that, or maybe for a wrap up, I'm not entirely sure yet, but my intention is to have a fresh spread for February. So that's really all for this bullet journal video. I just want to thank you for watching, and I'm hoping to create more of these kind of videos, so if you liked it, maybe you would subscribe and stick around and see what else I come up with. Thanks again for watching. See you later.